Hello.
Hello.
Oh, there I am.
Hello.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm gonna kick us off right away just to get right into our agenda. And today we have a presentation from Adrienne Benjamin and her affiliation. And so we're very interested in hearing what you have to present, as well as your legislative priorities for this year. One of the things that has been a goal for us is to be able to connect and collaborate with others who have very similar agendas. So I'll kick it right to you. Go ahead, Andrea.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Adrienne Benjamin here. Also my colleague in the corner, Rick Rothstein, he's a member of our steering committee, the Connecticut Profound Autism Alliance Steering Committee. And he and I have advocated for years, not in this group, because this is a new group. We just started the Connecticut Profound Autism Alliance this last year. But before I'm going to talk about that, I have to show you a picture of my daughter because she's my sweetie. There she is, looking at her Teletubbies video on her iPad. She's 29 going on 2 to 3. So Zoe has profound autism, nonverbal intellectual disability, obviously, seizure disorder under control, yes, sleep disorder, GI disorders, things that are very common in behavioral issues. Forgot that one. Very common in the families of people with profound autism. She lives in a group home, and that happened because in Wethersfield with Hark. We're very grateful for that because my husband died suddenly 4.5 years ago, and her level of need is 7 out of 8. DDS has a graph of that. And there's no way I could take care of her by myself. So I was very grateful for that. But symbolically and interestingly, she walks into a group home where no one has ever worked with someone with profound autism. No one, none of the staff, good staff, had ever worked with someone who was nonverbal. So, and unfortunately, that's often the norm because there's not enough training. There's hardly any training in DDS for the staff to learn about autism, let alone profound autism. So that needs to change, which is one of our goals, of course. I'm going to give you a little bit of CDC data. Now, this is the old CDC before the current administration's data, just to clarify. It's based on a study of 11 states, and they found that 1 out of 31 people now are on the spectrum. And of course, it's a very broad spectrum, as we all know. But 26.7% are identified as having what they call profound autism. So that's more than a quarter of people with profound autism. And the reason the Profound Autism Alliance was created is because exclusion of people with profound needs has become the norm. And when I say that, like specifically, in all the research that's done on autism, only 6% includes people with profound autism. And I've given you some, I included, I don't know how to do this technologically, but I sent Tara some information about Profound Autism Alliance because we're part of a national group. And there's a scientific consensus developing about the definition of profound autism. I've also included that. So exclusion is the norm, and we see that in our own group. We have a steering committee of 9 people. Of those 9 people, 2 are desperately searching for services and have been excluded from day and residential. Of the 30 people involved in our program, in our organization, there's many more that are also still excluded, or in totally inappropriate settings. I mean, just hair-raising inappropriate settings. So we had a big year this year. Let's have Rick introduce himself and a little bit about his son, Spencer.
Okay, my name is Rick Rothstein. I live in West Hartford. I guess today I have to take my stripes down a bit because I think Lois has been doing this more than longer than I have, but most people haven't. I started in 1987, shortly after we returned to Connecticut from the Washington, D.C. area. And I've been advocating with the legislature, serving on committees of DDS, and establishing connections for the last however many years that is. My son was 4 when we moved to Connecticut. And when he came here, we had birth to three services, which were fine. Back then, it was center based. And during his 4th year of life, he developed very, very severe medical condition. He actually went into kidney failure over a period of about 8 months. Before that, he was difficult because he had behaviors. He didn't recognize his mother anymore, and
Oops.
I,
Ruh-roh.
I think we lost Rick. If you want to continue, if he pops back on, we'll
Okay. Yeah.
pitch back to him.
Yes. So the Profound Autism Alliance, we got pretty determined to make things happen this last session, and we're very proud of how we did. We received a proclamation from from Governor Lamont, discussing the importance of the needs of people with profound autism. And March 17th, which also is another holiday, is Profound Autism Alliance Day in Connecticut. And I sent a copy of the proclamation as well. It's a little hard. You can probably read it on your computer, but not on a phone. Um, and we were thrilled to have a press conference with Lieutenant Governor Bysowitz. And it was great because we had bipartisan support, senators and representatives from both parties there at the press conference talking about how important we make some progress about profound autism. And that's when we talked a lot about our bill 7108. So House Bill 7108 is what we worked with Senator Lesser, Representative Gilchrist, Representative D'Amico, Representative Jay Case, and many others about this 7108. And we had two main goals. First was to finally get DDS to give us the data on how many people they serve have autism. I've been on the Council on Developmental Services for 12 years and have asked several times, could we please just have the data on how many people have autism? And it never happened. For whatever reason, it's not my opinion, that doesn't matter, but it never happened. So we had legislators agreeing with us that we need to know that data, because how can you plan to treat and provide services for people when you don't know how many people have autism? Because as everyone knows, anyone who's in DDS has an IQ under 70. Not all of them have autism, but many do. So we need that data on how many have autism. So, and I think, sometimes when you ask DDS to do a lot more stuff, they go, oh, more stuff. And I understand I respect the commissioner and the leadership of DDS enormously. They are very busy people. But every case manager has a file on every client they serve. And in that file is the diagnosis. But DDS doesn't characterize people they don't separate out diagnoses. This is why we don't know how many people have autism. But every case manager has that data. So it shouldn't be too hard to call Sue, the case manager in this region, and say, how many people do you have with autism? No, 45. How many people how does Frank have with autism? 72. To get the data, because we really need this data. Because then we can go to the legislature and say, oh my gosh, there's 25% of people with the most severe version of autism because they also have ID. So we need training, we need more training, we need better services, we need some BCBAs hired. We need regional center, we need group homes that can handle these folks. So so that passed. Now, the language we wanted wasn't exactly as we hoped because we wanted it to be much clearer and specific. Hey, Rick, I was, are you back?
I'm back. I apologize.
That's okay.
I
We
was in
all
the
understand.
emergency room over the weekend and had a medical appointment this morning, so things are a little nuts here at home. Anyway, even with Spencer in a group home, things can be nuts at home. So anyway, near his in his fourth year, he developed what everyone thought was a benign form of kidney disease. He wound up being in the hospital for 11 months, had more surgeries than any of us have fingers and toes, and hundreds of blood units between red blood cells and plasma and platelets. Uh, I will say his autism saved his life. He didn't know what was going on. He still doesn't know what's going on in terms of his medical stuff. He just knows he's medically complicated and he has to stay within tight boundaries. Um, uh, so by the end of the 11 months, he had gone into failure. He was treated for dialysis on an inpatient basis, which was the only thing available at that time for a pediatric patient, and because of issues at Hartford Hospital at that particular time. And he came home, and we started our own in-house group home. We had, fortunately, outstanding medical insurance. And so we had 24/7 private duty nurses generally, who, when they showed up, were outstanding, learned to work with him, and got to understand what his limited verbal skills were. And it was things like he would say ice, he would say something like ice chips, and they would know that they needed some moisture, or he had a toy Big Bird, talking Big Bird, and he loved that. And he'd say Big Bird, and they would know what to do with it. But that was the extent of his verbalization then. He has developed a bit since then, but I would say he's primarily nonverbal. He has limited verbal when there are things that he really, really wants. And sometimes we have to ask him to say it multiple times to understand it. We ran the group home at home for about 2 years, and he successfully received a kidney transplant, and we thought things were going to get better. Well, the monitoring that was required for the kidney transplant and the parameters around his life just got narrower. And
We
there
have to go
needed,
back to autism. I'm sorry. We have to go back to our goals for we're
yeah,
running
so
low on time. I'm sorry.
we did apply for emergency placement and became part of the HARC home that was developed with the assistance of David Haddon and the folks at HARC, who developed a group home for young children that was very family centered. Unfortunately, I think it was the only one that was ever developed. And he has continued to have medical issues over the years. His non-understanding of safety has gotten him into trouble. Um, he is very limited on his intake of fluids, and he is very clever at finding ways to get to water or anything else that's a liquid. So he's now a Lon 8, which is the highest Lon, and has one-to-one supervision 24/7, both at his day program and residential. Um, he is
When
currently
you
under, go ahead, I'm sorry.
when you disappeared for a minute, I started talking about 7108.
Yeah,
I just got to the part about the need for an assessment for the numbers from the data we need from DDS.
okay, why don't you go ahead with that?
Okay, thanks. I mean, I could talk about my daughter a long time too, because she's a trip to Hollywood. She's nonverbal, she's very physically active, has a zero safety awareness. She eloped from the group home one night at 11 p.m. with pajamas and in November and no shoes on, and got into a van and just waited for 15 minutes before someone found her. So there's issues, layers. So getting the data from DDS, I think will give us some pretty good leverage to go to the legislature and the governor and explain we just aren't prepared. We are not prepared for these kids with severe autism, with profound autism. We don't have the resources. People are being rejected because their behaviors are too severe, or the physical space just isn't large enough to manage someone who needs a lot of walking around in the community can be very dangerous. And obviously there's people that punch holes in walls and, just need one on, most of us, they need 24/7 for the rest of their lives with profound autism and often need one-on-one. My daughter always has a one-on-one, as does Spencer, though they're very different kids. The other issue we focused on was abuse and neglect. I am sad to say that Rick and I, as well as several other members of our steering committee, have had abusive situations in group homes or day programs. And also, well, and someone eloping in the middle of at 11 p.m. that's not abuse, that's neglect. So we've all had that. And unfortunately, DDS has, I don't doubt their sincerity in caring about this, but their process is lousy. There's no transparency. It takes forever to get any answers about what happened. Um, and my daughter, well, there's the woman who abused my daughter has been charged with 2 felonies. I'll just say that. So it was pretty severe, broken nose. And the kids with profound autism, many of whom are marginally verbal or nonverbal, have even less ability to protect themselves, have no ability to protect themselves from an abusive caregiver or an abusive whatever. So we really wanted to see DDS step up their game on abuse and neglect investigations. And the House Bill 7108 does call for that. More transparency, reports to the legislature, which we're very grateful for. And even more amazing, this bill was passed unanimously by the House and the Senate. So, and signed, of course, by the governor. So we were very impressed. And it's been, we're very grateful. And we have a great team. This year, which is the point of what I'm talking about, and I've already gone over, sorry. This year, we need to continue for those projects to follow up and make sure that the assessment of case managers assessing the unmet needs and how many people are in DDS with autism, that really is critical. And I know that the assessment goes beyond people in the DDS world, and that's also extremely important. So I'm glad that that's going to happen. But I know because people are busy, it's a crazy year, and we're just going to have to sit on people and remind them and show up and advocate that they really follow through on these things. And what we will always do is advocate for more wages for the staff. They're underpaid. It's hard to get them to stay in nonprofits. They don't make enough money. It's a hard, hard job. And we attend the rallies that are held by the Alliance, and we testify at appropriations again and again for more funding and more training and a professional path for the DS direct support professionals. Huh. Any questions?
Um,
Go ahead.
it's yeah, I've worked on several other major projects in the last 35 years. I was with a group that helped the census get started in Connecticut, and we worked very hard to get it passed. And then DDS mostly implemented it the way we wanted to implement it, but of course, not everything works perfectly. And we're very glad to see in 2023 that the legislature, as part of 5001, did tighten that up a bit and create the positions for Tara and Heather
Heather,
in
Heather.
OPM. So we support what you guys are doing, and it's a thankless job, but families will thank you for what
Yeah,
you're
well, thank
doing.
you a lot.
And um, we're very fortunate that Judith City, who is the CEO of the Profound Autism Alliance, she worked with Autism Speaks for about 20 years as a liaison to all the different states. And she started Profound Autism Alliance in order to focus on the needs that were being unmet for her son, who just aged out of his educational program. And even she can't find someone to take him in Massachusetts. This is not entirely a local problem.
Right.
We are in touch with, there are 49 chapters of the Profound Autism Alliance. There's one state that's missing, it's out west somewhere. And we are seeing this problem everywhere. But our biggest concern is what will the kids in Connecticut have, whether they're aging out or whether it's later on in life, because their needs are always changing and the system doesn't always change to adapt to their needs. And we have several stories of people who have been sent away to places like NEC, New England Center for Children, or similar places in Massachusetts for residential school, and come home to a totally inappropriate placement. The agency is not prepared to take on the mission. They're not adequately trained, not adequately staffed, and a ton of abuse and neglect complaints because the staff just doesn't know what to expect, how to work with our more difficult individuals. Yeah, I do feel that everyone on the autism spectrum is kind of getting a short shake. I know we've made some progress, but those who are much higher functioning aren't getting what they need either. And Adrian and I have spoken in favor of the entire autism spectrum over our years at the legislature. And we anticipate continuing to do so. Abuse and neglect affects the entire autism spectrum and others that don't have autism just have IDD. So we don't want families to go through what our families have gone through. And unfortunately, my son has had 2 major incidents in about a 3-year period. And the first one was handled very poorly. The police should have been brought in. They weren't. And the second one, I requested that DDS authorize a private investigator, very professional private investigator that they picked. And it was very professionally done and done on time. And the individual investigated my son's medical conditions, which are a big part of where his behaviors get him into trouble. So he was able to speak with us as the investigation went along, even though normally that isn't the case in a DDS abuse and neglect investigation. So there are ways to do this better than what we're doing now. Adrian and I are both involved in a national subcommittee of the Profound Autism Alliance, looking at the abuse and neglect issue on a national basis and hoping to find some recommendations that can be applied to our state. And that we have about 10 other people who are very active with that all over the country. And so that's one area. The other area is we can't plan, departments plan. Every department in the state plans, and a lot of it is conducted by OPM. But what highways do we need? What colleges do we need? What new buildings do we need? We can't prepare for something when we have no clue as to how many people have profound autism. And we do know that we're underplanned right now. We're not ready for the level of individuals that we have now. And as one of our members says, there's a tsunami coming, and we better figure out how to do this. Yep. And get the funding in place from here and from Washington to get it done. So.
Thank you. I just curious, and I'm sure other members are curious as well. How often does your group meet and when, and is it open for anyone to attend?
The steering committee meets every 2 weeks. And in a few weeks, we're going to have a little mini summit, a 4-hour get together. Instead of a Zoom meeting for an hour, we're going to have a little mini summit at my house for the steering committee to zero in on what we want to do next. And I've given you the thumbnail version of that, working more on 7108. I wish we could incorporate what Rick just mentioned, having independent investigators, because agencies investigate themselves. It's just not independent. It's
Yeah,
not.
so they investigate themselves and then the reports are reviewed by DDS.
So it's
And
not.
until the reports are complete, families are totally out of the loop. And there are situations where that has to be the case. If a family member is involved in the abuse. Obviously, you have to keep them out of
That's
the picture,
totally
but
different. That's a totally different issue. Yeah.
you have no idea where it's at, and no one is authorized to tell you where it's at.
Mhm.
So
So,
we're going to meet, we're going to meet once a month. So the whole group will meet
Okay,
once a month on a Zoom on a Tuesday evening at 7:30.
awesome. And anyone from our group would be welcome to.
Absolutely.
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Yeah.
And vice versa. I want you to know that as we meet, we are open to the public as well,
Great.
and we
Yep.
appreciate any participation. Very similar issues, of course, and we want to really be able to join forces and be able to send a very common message. So we look forward to any and all partnerships we can join.
Fabulous. Because
Well,
the more we're united, the more we can get done.
100%, 100%. And you are
And
certainly addressing very important topics. So it's appreciated very much.
I mean,
I'm
so
sorry.
a lot of our other
Oops.
issues coincide with things that Walter Clem talked with last month. You know,
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
transportation is an issue.
Hmm.
We need day programs that are responsive to the needs of our individuals. Some of them may be able to work, but many of them can't. And it's getting more and more difficult to find those
Hmm.
positions. I know the number of placements that in support living that our agency has are far reduced from what they were back in the 90s and early 2000s. So it's very, very hard economically and so forth. Some agencies, some organizations have a good heart and they're willing to bring in a few people, but it's, then if you don't have enough people and enough supervision, it doesn't work.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway, I'm sorry. I'll kind of leave
That's
it at that.
okay. It's a very, very
We all
important.
have a lot to say.
Yes,
I'm sure you do too.
very much, very much. And we thank you for your presentation. We are excited to see what the future brings as we kind of bring these agenda items forward. So for our committee for today, I just want to go over Tara, you sent out the August and September meeting minutes.
They're on the website.
They're on the website.
Mhm.
Can I have approval for August and September for the minutes?
So I nominate approval.
Thank you, Patrick. Do I need a second, Tara, or that will work? Do I have a second?
I'll
Sarah,
sec-
did you?
Yeah.
You'll second? Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.
First, Kim.
Okay. As you know from our last meeting, we had sent a letter to the Human Services Committee regarding the bill that had been presented last year, but unfortunately did not go all the way through the Senate, raising BCBA services to the age of 26. Our letter was requesting lifetime services for BCBA. At this point, we have not received any response. And I was curious to know from our members if you are interested in sending a letter to Representative Exum, who can help us continue to support that bill.
Yes, I would be in support of that.
Thank you, Patrick.
We could also
So,
send it to the full committee. We sent it to the chairs. Um, and but we did not send it to the full committee, so we could easily send it to every member if you would like.
do our members agree with that, being able to send it to the full committee?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
We
Thank you.
also could, so Representative Exum and Senator Marr are part of the Children's Committee. So that would be the other, they were the ones who actually introduced it first as part of the TCB bill. So there's another vehicle there that we could just go ahead and send it to the chairs of the Children's Committee as well.
I think it's a good idea, Tara, to try to elicit as much support as possible to send our communication to as many people as you think appropriate for that. Would everyone agree? I'm seeing head nods.
Okay, then I will go ahead and send that out on
Thank
behalf of the
you.
council.
Thank you, Tara. Our second priority has really been, it was suggested to create tiers and that we need to consider reimbursement rates given the lack of providers, and that there's disparity currently between DDS and DSS. It would be good to get some additional information on this. And I don't know, Tara, if you have some ideas on what information we can seek and from where, if you could help me with that.
Sure, I can. So I think that the Carol, and she's on today, was the one who suggested creating potential tiers in the waiver and her policy proposal, and we had not been able to fully discuss that at the last meeting that where we reviewed the proposal. So I just wanted to make sure that we gave that time. And then I think that, you know, there's, as far as the disparity, there's a service disparity between, I mean, because obviously not everything that's offered in the DDS waivers are offered in the autism waiver. So again, as as we've also heard from DSS directly regarding the waiver, they've had hiring, um, you know, some nuances with hiring and trying to onboard people. They had a retirement. So getting staffing up there to get people fully onboarded there's been a delay in that. And based on the numbers of slots that they have available. I also know that they are as reported in our meetings, they are working to try to um, clean up some of the, with the providers and everything else. So I think that they're trying to work on some quality improvement strategies within the waiver. And so to Carol's point, though, the question that's been proposed to me is that, because I've been pushing for tiers since I came onto this. And part of that was because when you look at how much of the services are utilized and you look at the average utilization of services in the waiver, it's pretty low. People are not hitting that, cap. So that's obviously why, you ask why. This is one of the reasons why we advocated for the needs assessment, so that we can collect that data from waiver participants to see what are their unmet needs, why are they not utilizing those, full waiver array of waiver services. So that is information that we're hoping to get more granular data on. Also, there's a theory that if we had more providers and were able to, um, and some, if the rates were potentially better, would we see higher utilization of services? So the question is not necessarily, are people underutilizing because are they underutilizing because they have unmet needs as far as regarding services, or are they underutilizing, for other reasons? Lack of providers, not being able to, the disparity in the rates is significant, for example, between employment rates within the waiver, employment services within the waiver compared to employment services through BRS. The reimbursement rates are very different. So, some of those are just some of the things that have come to me in part of this conversation of tiering the waiver. So, Carol, I don't know if you have any additional opinion on that, considering some of those things I just brought up.
Yeah, I think that there's probably people who I know that there are people on the waiver who have difficulty finding staff, don't have staff. My experience with interlocking is that we have staff for the individuals that we have committed to. And I have a lot of people who don't utilize, they just don't utilize. They maybe, I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of somebody who gets 4 hours a week. I can think of somebody who gets 2 hours a month. And those are people we work with. And so there's a lot of money being set. And I would say that the majority of the people that I'm aware of, which is probably 40 to 50 people, that I know of, two that are at the cap.
Okay.
And that's just my little piece of my world.
So quick question, are they utilizing other Medicaid services that, like personal care, like PCA services or anything like that in addition to? So I'm just curious, like why, um,
No.
if you know the motivation behind not like the low utilization, are they just like, I got a slot and so now I just want to stay in the waiver
That's what it
unless
is. I
something,
have a
okay,
slot. I just want to stay in. I'm in school full time. I work full time. I don't have time to do this, but I'm not going to give up my spot.
okay.
And I understand that. I do
Mhm.
understand that. And I'm not saying that the people that we provide 4 hours a week to aren't needing that 4 hours a week,
Mhm.
but they don't need the amount that they are requiring. And of the people
Okay.
that I know that are at the cap, those are actually individuals that if the IQ difference between DDS and DSS were different, they would be DDS guys.
Okay. So high utilization in your experience
Is related to
related to like level of need.
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Toby, is that your first name? I'm sorry.
Yes, Toby, hi, I'm with Disability Rights Connecticut, and I believe Stephen Byers was the representative prior to my participation, so this is my first meeting on this particular committee. I'm curious about this low utilizer versus high utilizer, and I think it was Carol that just mentioned that some people say 4 hours a week, I work full time, whatever the case may be. I'm just curious, and I'm learning, I'm from New Hampshire, I'm learning about how the Connecticut system is structured and what the various needs are in the landscape, but I'm just wondering if it's been your experience that for people who do have lifestyles that even if they have needs, if their schedules are kind of all over the place because they might be working different jobs, those sorts of things, do they not kind of fit into a particular window of when services are available, or it's hard to structure those services because of when they're available to actually get that support? Is
I
that
can only speak for my agency and the services that I provide.
Right.
And most of yes and no, but the expectation, so most of the time it is not based on when services, this is just, I don't need or want the services. We do have some families that are very particular, like we only want services on Tuesday from 3 to 4. And I'm like, well, we don't provide services we don't drive 45 minutes to provide services for 1 hour. The window of Tuesday from 3 to 4 is a pretty small window. And
That's
we
what
do,
that's what I was getting at. I was just curious if there was that issue. I only say that because I'm also a parent myself, and my daughter she's on the waiver and gets we do self-directed services. She lives in New Hampshire, but it's very hard to find direct support workers that can work around her schedule. And I was just curious if that isn't a dynamic that's true for some people in Connecticut.
yeah, I'm sure that is true, especially if somebody's working and things like that. But it's more and again, I'm talking about my little piece of Connecticut world, that it's not that we are not able to provide services when they need it. They are not wanting the services, or don't feel like the services are helpful. And not that they're not helpful, but they feel like, I mean, if I have a bachelor's degree and I work full time and I have my own apartment and I have a girlfriend and all these things, I don't really need a life skill coach. I can cook for myself. And those are people that are on the waiver. And that's just that's the situation. So
Mhm. Is
Thanks.
there a service that you feel or that they've, and again, I know this is a small subset because we're just talking about people that you currently serve, but just curious with, your conversations with other providers as well, if there's a service that they feel the waiver is lacking.
One thing that came up, actually just came up last week is I have a staff who worked with an individual because he had a weight loss program, and the individual lost like 11 pounds in 2 months, which was fantastic, and so that staff has asked if they could run exercise groups. And so I know that question has gone to the waiver, and they're going to be discussing it at their next case manager group.
Okay.
So I mean, I think that would be really great. We're expecting people to exercise and go to the gym by themselves. Many of the gyms don't allow a life skill coach or a community mentor to go with them. So it's Adrienne looks like shocked.
That's
They,
terrible.
yeah. But so, we can go and we can sit in the waiting room, but we can't necessarily go and do an exercise class. So I think that would be a fantastic thing if we could either sponsor like an exercise class or, have a gym that could do that. We really, our guys really do need to exercise and get out there, but probably that would be a good way to support them.
Okay. So as far as then looking at, if it's the committee's opinion that we should explore, like advocating for additional tiers to be in the waiver, what would be the next steps that you guys feel that we should take to get to that?
I'm sorry, I'm talking again. But I would think that getting the information from DSS about the utilization, not just the utilization of what is in the IPs, but the actual utilization, the actual dollars being utilized. Because I wouldn't want someone to say, oh, they're utilizing 70% of what they're allocated when they're only allocated 10 hours a week, right? So I think it would be good to know what's the dollar amount that the percentage of people are saying, and then take it from there. If 70% of people are utilizing 25% of the money, I think that would be, a way to kind of come up with a rubric, right? That you could say, like, what would the tiers be? And I brought this up before. I also think, and I'd be happy to participate in that, but looking at what other states do, because I know Massachusetts has a waiver program too. There's no wait list, but I do have to say, coming from Massachusetts and having a child who is part of that program, if you don't pursue the services, they don't pursue you. You or your family have to be actively wanting the services. And if you do, they're there. And if you don't pursue them, then they go to somebody else. And I know that's probably a big ask, but it would be interesting to know what other states are doing that don't have wait lists like we do.
And Tara, I would think that the needs assessment that we're trying to put together would also be a really critical tool, because to me, I always worry about the individuals we don't really even know about, right? And to what degree their needs are not being met, or the individuals that have attempted to pursue or become part of it, but there's all these barriers that have been in the way of being able to receive services. But I think Carol also brings up a really good point. And as you know, I've always advocated too, Tara, for the tiers, because not everyone needs everything. And so the degree to which we can start to explore really what's that sweet spot for the continuum, I think is really important. And the more data that we can get, not just from the state agencies, but also from families themselves or recipients themselves, I think will be better for us to have a working knowledge of what is needed.
Yeah, and I have requested, so Carol, I just want to make sure, because I can put in a request for data on utilization information for waiver services. And so I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding what the group would like to look at. So at the end of December of 24, I requested some data, and I have not gotten an update to this, so I can tell you what the average allocation, so this would be, services that it doesn't necessarily mean utilization, but the allocation of services is $23,890.
That's the
So
average.
across waiver participants, correct?
Okay.
Which is one of the things, which is why I was like, okay, well, that's less than 50% of what they're, they can utilize. So that's the average allocation. And then I have it by service as well. So is that what you're looking for? And then or are you looking more for like utilization or both? Do we want to know what's allocated and what's utilized? Is that the data that we're kind of looking for?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I know that you're going to see a low, I can predict that you will see a low utilization of community mentoring, but that is because the rates are so low that you can make more money working at Amazon warehouse. And so people are not, agencies, myself, my own agency included, we will not accept someone that's just community mentoring.
Mhm.
That's something that I know is being discussed, but maybe that
Mhm.
could be something that would be a little bit more.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like the highest service is life skills.
Yes.
And then after that is community mentor and then behavioral support. Those are and then job coaching.
Well, the BCBA would typically be 1 to 2 hours per month. That's
Mhm.
typically, unless you're brand new to the waiver and, have a lot more needs, then you might have more. But BCBA time really eats into budgets significantly because the
Mhm.
rate is so much higher.
Mhm.
So it wouldn't surprise me that life skill coaching is the highest. I know we're also doing more job coaching as well. And so I don't know, that's something that has been kind of new that we've been able to do that.
Mhm.
But I mean, finding out the utilization, I mean, what you found in 2024 was it was less than 50%.
Mhm.
And I think you would find that it's less than 50% or maybe even more, maybe even less than 50% now.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm interested to see what Adrienne has to say, because she said she has some people that are low utilizations people. But for me, it's not because we aren't trying to provide the service. It's because they're being declined.
Mhm.
So
And being
What
declined
is
by
that?
the participant, the waiver
yeah,
participant. Yes.
correct.
Okay.
You want
Correct.
me to answer?
Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Well, in my other life, my professional life, I'm a clinical social worker, and I have two clients, parents, who have kids on the waiver. And when one applied when they were 3, the child was 3, the other when the child was 6. And the 3-year-old got services at age 19. I'm not kidding. And the 6-year-old got services like at 20. So they don't need what they needed when they were young. They needed a whole hell of a lot when they were young. And I know you all know this, and I know it's not your fault. It's the legislature and the funding that for not enough spots. But luckily, these kids they went to schools where they had good BCBAs and good ABA therapy, so they've developed enormously. And they don't need a huge amount of services. They do need services. One needs help driving because he's very, very scared of except driving like around the block, and he's a competent person, should be able to drive. And the other needs social skills, very, very low social skills, although competent in many, many ways, takes classes at Tunxus, et cetera, et cetera. I can't obviously identify these people, but what they needed when they were little is just totally not what they need now. And the mom, one of the moms is very worried she's going to get kicked off because they're not using it enough. I said, I really don't know much about that, but you have to talk to them and explain that you don't need what he used to need. I mean,
Right.
it's a shame that they had to wait so long, and I know that breaks your heart too,
Right. No, the individuals that I know that are low utilizing, it's not that they don't need the services for the
Mm,
most part. It's
mhm.
that they don't need as much. And I think your point is correct that when you're, you know, 20, 30, 40, and you've been without services for a long time, you kind of, and you've been in school and had all these things happen, you know, that you don't need as much as you did when you were 5. So
It's just an irony. And I know so many people are just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then there's people that don't even know that there's a list. I mean, I tell people all the time, get on the waiver list. What's the waiver list? I explain it. And, yep.
yeah, so I mean, I would be really happy to have the council look more at tiers. I think we could provide services to a lot more people in the state.
Interesting. Yeah, that'd be fabulous.
I agree with you, Carol. I'm all for trying to gather some more information in terms of the data, Tara, and then maybe we can, when we're ready, dedicate one of our meetings to discussing the data and what we find and some suggested next steps and how to move forward. At this,
We can
I'm sorry.
always pull, yeah, and we can always, if it's, you know, a planned conversation, we can always try to pull in, you know, some people from DSS from the waiver
Wonderful.
as well for them to
Wonderful.
participate in that conversation, as they would have all of the operational knowledge to provide to us.
I think that's a great idea.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, Lynn, and then
Like,
Sarah.
because I'm new to this whole thing now. And I hear what everybody's saying and I agree with everything that everybody's saying. But like the other woman was saying who has an agency, like it's a real problem because like people who are on the waiver who are able to get the services, they're not really using the services. Like they're wasting people who really need it. You know?
Yeah,
And
I
I don't
think
understand, like, there must be a way that we can figure out how to make the waiver list like it's so long. It's like 10 years long or something. It's like it's crazy.
yes.
And it's like by that time the person who gets on it, like, you know, like they're older and they don't really I don't know.
Yes. Yes, Lynn, definitely all issues.
I
Sarah?
mean, she was saying in Massachusetts, like the wait's not that long. Like, why do we have such a long wait?
Yeah. Yeah, these are issues that we definitely need to continue exploring.
And like, why can't DSS like go through their long list and like weave out the people who really don't like? Why can't they call and, you know, find out these people still want to be on the list? And there's probably millions of people on that list who don't even want to be on the list.
So I can answer that question. They are calling people and trying to make sure that they are still interested in waiver services. So there is some of that proactive conversations going on. And Lynn, I'll also answer your other question. The reason they are not going through the list in that manner is because the waiver is not written that way. They are not allowed to do that. Right now, the waiver is the way it's written is that it's a first come, first serve. So the people that are they literally go from like the next person on the list. And then that it's not based on priority of need. It's based on just the list, the waiting list and who called first. And that's the way it's currently written. Not to say that that can't be changed because it can, but the way that it's currently approved and written, that's the way
So
how
does an opening become available? Like,
because we have some waiver slots that were funded by the legislature that they're working to fill. And so they are going through that list now and contacting people based on the number of waiver slots that they have. The other thing, the reason we talked about case management too, is that the case managers are represented by a union and they have a union contract that does not allow them to go above a certain number of cases. So if we have a certain number, if we don't have enough case managers on staff, then we can't onboard more people into the waiver. So sometimes there's gap in the time that we can onboard people. So that's the other thing that DSS is currently trying to work through within the autism waiver that they've reported on at our
Yeah,
meeting.
because I know I'm in like a little like therapy group on Wednesdays with somebody else who's actually on the council. And she, all the people who are like are in the group, like they're on the waiver and they have like their life coach, but like they always in our group meetings and stuff, they always like kind of say like because they were like with another agency and that agency had to close down, so then they had to get on another agency like
Mhm.
Liberty, but then now Liberty, like their workers don't show up and there's a lot of issues like they don't
Mhm.
like they're the people in our group are like frustrated because they don't come and they don't I don't know. I guess there's
Yeah.
not enough, like they say, like there's not enough people want to be life coaches.
Yeah.
That is another presenting issue.
And there's no, they have to find more agencies that do this. There's not enough.
Yes. And they are actively working on that too.
Because if that was the case, then they could get more people off the list.
Yes, agreed, Lynn. Sarah?
I have now a second question based on something Tara just said, but I think I have two quick questions that might help us move forward. Tara, first question is what is the method to change that policy in the waiver in terms of changing the waiver not to first come, first serve, but to a need-based allocation?
We'd have to rewrite a waiver application to CMS and get that approved.
Okay, so that might be something to, again, I don't know who's we, but like,
DSS is the current administrator of the waiver, of the autism waiver. So they would be responsible for doing that rewrite.
Okay. So again, is that something we can influence or, somehow suggest or, I don't know. Is that, I don't know if they want to do that.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important to talk to them, like, because they're the ones who are administrating that waiver. So I think that's what I was suggesting, that getting them on a call and, kind of talking through those nuances of what it would take to do that and, how it's structured. So again, that's why there's differences from state to state, because each state writes their own waiver. Some states have the other thing that you have to look at that's very different from Connecticut to Massachusetts is Massachusetts is a managed care state for their waiver services, whereas Connecticut does fee for service. So even when you compare from state to state, and you're saying, well, they don't have a wait list, or that you have to, there's a lot of nuances involved in that when not every Medicaid plan, state plan is written the same. So you have to look at those nuances, which makes it really hard sometimes to compare those services because it's not always apples to apples.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, and I guess I know we just have to finish up, but yes, that would be I would back that, exploring that with DSS in terms of how that, waiver might be changed. Professionally, we are dealing with the same thing as well. We have a wait list for patients and it's not so effective to be first come, first served when actually certain patients have greater needs. So it's very similar. And I completely sympathize. And then my other quick question was, where, and I forgive my ignorance, but where do those unused allocations go, right? So if they have, how does that work if clients have, X amount allocated, but yet they only use so much? Does it go back to the pool? Do we not find out until the end? Like, does it roll over? How does that work?
So this is a conversation about the joys and nuances of state budgeting. So when you have a waiver, so the way it's been explained to me, and I'm hoping I'm not messing this up, but is that we don't actually, so especially in Medicaid services, we don't have a pot of money that we just say, hey, this is all the Medicaid money that we've budgeted for. Like, we budget for a certain amount. But like, for example, last year, they overspent that budget by, I think, like over $8,000 that we then had to find that money somewhere else in the budget for cuts and everything, because we are mandated to balance the state budget. So we look, not me, but the more important people than me look at, so this is the average utilization. This is what we are, that each plan is approved, and you're looking at spend. Sometimes that changes, right? It goes up or down or whatever. But so we have a certain number of waiver slots approved so that we can budget for that. But it doesn't mean that there's like this pot of $50,000 for every person that's just sitting there, and then the money. So the money, if there's underutilization, goes, stays in the general fund to fund all of those other things that are not being, that are probably overspent in other areas, like
Okay.
whatever it is that was high for Medicaid participants that year or something. So,
Yeah, and Toby makes a good point in the chat that could, if it looks like we're not using, if it looks like we're underutilizing, I think it's a great point, Toby, then it reflects how you budget for the next year.
That's another.
that's correct. That is correct. So the waiver is not going to be like, we would look at what the utilization was for the previous year, look at, okay, we're onboarding X amount of people. If this is the average, utilization, this is about what the funding is that we would need to set aside in the budget.
Mhm.
I hope that that makes sense, and that I'm not botching the, but so that's kind of how it works.
So I just want to acknowledge that it's after 3
Yep,
o'clock.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I just don't want to, I know a number of people have already had to jump off. I think this is critical conversation. We can certainly continue the discussion as we move forward. The last thing, I just want to make sure that people are aware that on our website, and Tara, you can, if you could send out a link or reminder to everyone, that we have an opportunity for people to suggest policies. And this committee would then use that information to review it. At this time, there were no other suggestions other than Carol's, which we had great conversation with today. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.